Welcome to the Evening Review. My name is Sukhane Klahe, and joining us in studio is Economist Mally Likukela, who's going to be speaking about the recent Fitch downgrade, as well as the fact that government civil servants have not received any salary increase since 2016. Welcome to the Evening Review. It's good to have you back.
Very well. Thank you. Good evening.
Recently had a Fitch rating downgrade. What does it entail, and why is it important that why does it matter that we take cognizance or we take note of these upgrades or downgrades?
Okay, so it works like this in an economy or in a government. As you know, not every government has got financial muscles to do whatever they want to do to finance their spending. So time and again, governments go to other institutions and other governments to borrow money. Now, before they do that, these people who give them money, who lend them money, they regularly do a credit risk assessment. So what is happening currently now is there are 3 internationally recognized agencies that do those credit risk assessment. And most countries are subscribed to them. So whenever they do this assessment, they produce reports. These results are the one that tells investors or fellow government that lends money that this country is in a good standing or this country is not in a good standing. So what happens is that time and again, the risk profile of a country, which means the ability to pay back the money, changes depending on various macroeconomic factors. And that is why time and again, these rating agents will come and do an assessment over and over again. So depending on how the country has performed economically, how the country has performed from its fiscal position, the result might come or might indicate that the risk has elevated. If the risk has elevated, you get a downgrade. If the risk has decreased, you get an upgrade. So in our case, the result shows that the risk profile has been elevated, meaning we have been downgraded further. We are presented as a country that has possibility of defaulting. They are not saying we will default, but all the indication points to a situation where the risk of defaulting have elevated. And this is the outcome that we got.
So last year there was the sale of government's MTC portion, the government's ownership of those sales to go towards settling Namibia's Euro bond obligation. And Namibia did not miss on that obligation to pay off the Euro bond. Measures like this, does it then mean that they do not in effect count?
Well, they do count, and exactly the reason why we haven't been downgraded further or fast enough, because we have a history of really honoring our financial obligations. What had caused this elevation is really a combination of many things, but very much important is the impact of COVID, which have constrained government's ability to really prudently exercise its fiscal position, which has constrained the economy to grow. So a combination of these facts have elevated or have aggravated the situation to an extent that even our previous history of honoring our financial obligations, like the one you've mentioned, have been overshadowed by the current situation. And these guys, their duty is just to really provide an image of what is the current situation. They are like a mirror. So whether you bathed yesterday, if today you have debt, it will reflect. So these guys are also doing exactly that. So despite the fact that we have a history of honoring our financial obligations, what had happened in the recent years have actually been taken care of or have been accounted far much more than what had happened. So really, this elevation in the risk is as a result of mainly COVID, the result of government trying to really spend more so that they can take care and mitigate the impact of COVID, and therefore have gone to borrow even more. So our debt stock has risen. And as a result of that, these rating agencies have to take that into consideration and make it part of the assessment.
The government recently announced in Parliament, the Minister of Finance, for that matter, that government was unable, not the Minister of Finance, I'm sorry, but the Minister of Information made an announcement to say this is government situation, there is no more money, through a government announcement that, and we cannot grant civil servants any salary increase as much as we understand the situation. And this is a position that has been repeated with even the Bank of Namibia governors, Johannes saying that this is not the way to go. How fair is this, and can we really say that government, to what extent are we going to push this out further? I mean, inflation is on the rise, fuel costs are on the rise, and.
Yes, no, you're quite right. This is a very unfortunate situation that civil servants find themselves in. For the past 7 years, government have been telling the civil servants that we do not have money. But what is ironic is the fact that while they are telling government that we do not have money, they are at the same time spending or doing very large spending on other areas of the economy, as if to say that the civil servants are not important, but they are very, very much important. Now, the issue here is really that the ability of government to satisfy both priorities is not there because government have exhausted the fiscal space. So it is really trying to choose which of the lesser evil to do. So in this case, the civil servants have been sacrificed so that the money that was supposed to go for their increment is now going to other things that government deems very important and critical. In this particular case, when COVID hit, government have to really find money to make sure that the vulnerable groups in our community, their impact is mitigated. That is money that could have gone to civil servant. Government have to make sure that there is enough for spending on infrastructure so that to keep the engines of the economy running. But at the same time, government must be cognizant of the fact that the real income of the civil servant have been eroded, the purchasing power have been eroded from inflation, from high interest rates. So the reality on the ground is quite clear. This is a very unfortunate and unfair situation for civil servants. But the question then is, where can government cut? So it's a matter really of saying, reprioritize the civil servant, because this will not continue. This is not sustainable. It is not sustainable because in the first place, it really touches on the morale of the civil servant. You cannot be working for somebody that does not seem to recognize your predicament. Very soon, most of the civil servants will not really give their best to their work because the salary is not enough. It does not justify all the efforts. Number two, the real economy will be affected because the spending power has been reduced considerably. The little that the incomes of the civil servant can retain won't be able to go further in fueling the economy. The demand, the aggregate demand will be eroded because they will not have enough to buy and support the economy. So this thing will come back and haunt government again because remember, it's a circular flow of income. If the government does not pay the employer for the labor that is providing, there will be no money to purchase and fuel the economy. So this is a cycle that government really have to find a way to break.
Would like to touch more on other issues, but before we go on to that, particularly the issue of oil and green hydrogen, we're going to go for a short commercial break. Do stick around. We'll be back shortly.
I got the fire inside my veins, and it's burning wild again. There ain't no running from the flame. Meet the master of the game. Yeah, I'm too hot to handle. Now you better learn. If you play with fire, then you're gonna get burned.
Welcome back to the Evening Review. Recently, with President Hage Geingoob's visit to Doha, Qatar, there were announcements that both Shell and Total want to speed up the production of oil that was recently discovered. What does this mean for our Namibian economy?
Yeah, so if the discoveries are finally confirmed that these deposits are there and they're economically viable, this is going to be a game changer for Namibia. As an economy that is very, very weak when it comes to manufacturing, when it comes to export of value-added products, this is going to really positively contribute to the Namibian economy. So what we're talking about here is the situation where when all these oil reserves have been confirmed and they are being developed, this is where money will start to come in, because you will need to bring in a lot of machineries, you're going to bring in a lot of material to make sure that these resources are well developed. This whole process translates into a lot of money. There is the expectation of huge billions of money coming in terms of revenue, both to the government through taxes, through all those levies and stuff like that. There is a lot of money that should be coming into individuals, especially those that are going to find work and jobs in there. Their income will be boosted. In the same way, again, there's going to be a lot of back and forward linkages. There are small businesses and even large businesses that will be engaged within this process. They will also get a boost in their revenue. So over and above, if these discoveries are confirmed and the process of developing them is put in motion, definitely this is going to be a very good thing for Namibia. However, there are catches all along. The question that we must already start to ask is, are we prepared? And this is a very broad question, because we have seen other countries where discoveries like this led to more economic hardships, because the government, the country were not prepared to host this kind of investment. And this is where really the conversations need to focus. Are we ready? Because we know already from the preliminary assessment that the discoveries or the oil deposits are there. But are we ready as a country to make sure that we optimize and maximize benefit from this? And that's where the discussion and conversation must be focused for this point in time. Yeah.
Looking at some policy interventions that government could look at to ensure that there is that it derives benefit from these discoveries. What are some of the things that we could be looking at putting in place even before oil is extracted?
The most important thing that government needs to do is to create a conducive environment for investment. Right now, we know that we're sitting on a gold mine or on an oil mine, if you like, but investors must first be assured that the amount of money that they're going to pump in to the economy to realize the development of these resources is secured. Is the environment, the economic environment, conducive for them? It is the duty of government to ensure that through the policies, through the regulations, the investors are taken care of. That is primary. That's very, very important, because we do not want to go and sell a product that we do not have. So when we go out there and say Namibia is an investment destination, everything must be in order. Let's put our house in order, and it's the duty of government to do that. That way, we are going to open up this country for credible investments. Credible investors, that's number one. Number two, we need to ensure that our financial market is well developed. Right now, we are really under the shadow of South Africa. If you have to list an investment or a bond or whatever, it has to really be a mirror reflection of what is acceptable in South Africa. Conditions in Namibia and South Africa are totally different. So let's develop our financial market so that we are able to raise capital that is needed to meet the demand of the investors. We do not want a situation, or it's not going to be possible for an investor to bring in 100% of equity, 100% of capital. We also need to raise a bit so that we meet them halfway. We need a credible, a developed financial market for that. And finally, our human capital needs to be attuned so that we are more ready and more available to meet the labor or human capital requirement those investors are going to bring. We have never produced oil before in Namibia, so no one really can say that we have sufficient skill. If it means buying these skills, if it means transferring or renting these skills, let's have these things in order so that when investors come, they don't bring in their own. Of course, they have to bring in a few to come and transfer skills and knowledge. But we know already that our education system is still lacking in many, many ways. Let us look at those so that we are not found wanting. And if these things are put in place, I can assure you this discovery will be a blessing instead of a curse for Namibia.
There's a lot of buzz around green hydrogen, and it's one of the things that His Excellency the President likes promoting a lot internationally. But then tied to that is also a lot of skepticism if one looks at this, you're saying that there's a lot of money that is going to flow into the Namibian economy. It has the potential to double the size of our gross domestic product. But at the same time, you get commentators say we are too far from the offtake markets, and it's still a form of technology that needs to be discovered. Where do we fit ourselves into that space to ensure that Namibia can derive the best benefit from green hydrogen?
Yes, so like I've said earlier, to say that we need to have our house in order so that we derive the maximum benefit from all of these discoveries, whether it is oil or it's hydrogen. Right now, there is a lot of global politics at international level concerning green hydrogen. Now, Namibia needs to position itself as one of the players, equal players on the arena, because we sit with massive sources of green hydrogen. We need to present ourselves as a credible investment destination, but we need to bring something to the table. What do we need to bring to the table? Number one, our policy, our macroeconomic environment must be conducive such that investors do not doubt. What the skepticism is all about is the fact that it's going to take us a couple of years before we begin to derive tangible benefit. This is the nature of business. I mean, a mine, you can't discover a mineral and start mining tomorrow. There is a whole lot of capital-intensive investment drive that must take place because you are creating something from the scratch. In this particular case, green hydrogen is not very much new to the rest of the world. Of course, other countries have tried and have developed, but not everyone really understands. So there's going to be a process of developing and understanding. And Namibia should be part and parcel of that because we're sitting with the reserves. And it is here where people are doubting because this is something that has never been done before. But that is not very important. That is not really relevant because we're sitting with reserves. And whoever feels and think that they have capacity, they must come here, invest here, but they must treat us as equal partners. What the skepticism is being driven is because of the previous experiences that we've had with other resources like the mining sector, where even up to now, there isn't really serious localization of the mining industry. And people are saying, okay, maybe even hydrogen will also take the same route. There will only be foreign investors, and there's going to be very little localization. Look at other sectors, even financial sector, there is really very little localization. And this is what is fueling the skepticism. So the president, as the champion of this campaign, must assure the rest of the Namibian people that this new investment drive will incorporate the aspect of localization, because we don't want to see all our resources being exported and we have nothing remaining. And this is really, and these fears are justifiable. If you look at the past, most of the mineral resources are really not in the hands of Namibians. So this is what is really fueling the fears. But nothing remains permanent. If there is a deliberate decision, a deliberate move from government to turn around this, it can be done.
You're speaking about localization and the participation of Namibians in these economic sectors. Then we have commentators again bring up issues such as the Equitable Economic Empowerment Bill and the Investment Act that are keeping investors away. We want money, but then you'd also want local participation. Where do we marry the two, and how best do we come up with a solution for that?
Yeah, so what is happening with all those documents or all those policies that you've mentioned is, again, the challenge of not taking into consideration the typical or special circumstances of Namibia. When you get an equitable policy document from Malaysia, you want to make it Namibia, to Namibianize it without taking into consideration the historical legacy of the Namibian people, it will not work. So when you are taking such document, localize it and make it reflective of the situation on the ground. Namibia, everyone knows, it's one of the highest countries with high income inequality. So when an investor comes to Namibia, expect to come and find a society that is equal, it's going to be very surprising for them. Because we are saying, look, there are people here that are well up and there are a lot of people that are not so well up. This proposal you are bringing does not fit. Can we go back to the drawing board? And it's the going back to the drawing board to reflect the needs of the Namibia, which scares our investors. But as serious investors will not be scared of that, because they are here to come and make fair money. If they want to come and make fair money, then they must take into consideration the situation on the ground. The equitable policy, this and that we have trying to put, does not reflect the real ground, the real situation on the ground. That's why it's not working. It is not to say investors are scared. It's going to scare investors because those that are standing to lose their monopoly will tell a different story to the investors, and until the investors are running away. But that's not the case. That's not the real thing on the ground. What is on the ground is to say that we need investors that recognize the fact that the Gini coefficient is amongst the highest in the world. And if an investor will have to come here, they'll have to come and inherit this situation to be part and parcel of the solution. And most investors do not want to be part and parcel of the solution. That's why they run away.
Thank you very much for joining us on the Evening Review.
You're most welcome. Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
That was the Evening Review. Do have yourself a pleasant evening further.
The Evening Review is a daily interview-based talk show that dissects and expounds on current affairs as they occur in Namibia. The show aims at reaching Namibians of all age groups who seek better understanding of the state of current affairs in the country. This show is broadcasted on NTV, 1up2.com, and cross-shared on the following Facebook platforms: Namibian Sun and Namibia Media Holdings. The Evening Review focuses on interviews, latest news, and up-to-the-minute current events. Contact Evening at synergy.com.na. Evening Review, unpacking today's pertinent issues.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, welcome to another exciting edition